SC's taken. Hold it, please.
You're dead!
Two explosives experts planted charges on a bridge. They were carrying out a CIA assignment to eliminate a Colombian drug lord. Everything was going according to plan, until Ray noticed that the criminal's daughter was riding in the car with him. Ned threw away the detonator. Less than a minute remained before the explosion. Ray hoped he could disarm the explosives in time, but it was already too late. He looked at the girl, and at that very moment, the blast went off. Ray was thrown from a great height into the water. The car followed him down. Ray managed to get to shore, where Ned was already waiting for him, with a gun in his hand. Ned beat his partner and was about to leave, but Ray caught up with him, beat him badly in return, and promised to destroy his career. 10 years passed. Ray became a contract killer. He had just received a job to eliminate 3 people. A woman wanted her enemies blown up, and Ray was the best in the business. He met the client at a cemetery. She wanted revenge on the people who murdered her parents. The gang was supposed to execute the entire family, but young Adrian managed to hide in a closet and survive. Despite the danger, the woman decided to infiltrate the gang herself. Her main target was Tomas Leon, the son of Joe Leon, the head of the criminal organization. Ned had been working for the Leon family for a long time, though he wasn't happy with how little they paid him. Adrian showed up at a party and immediately caught Tomas's attention. She felt uneasy when the killer stood beside her. The mafioso invited the stranger to dance. He was clearly taken with her. For now, everything was going according to plan. The next morning, Ray boarded a bus and noticed a group of street punks harassing the passengers. He gave up his seat for a pregnant woman, but one of the punks dropped into it and told Ray to get lost.
SC's taken.
Fuck you. Ray wasn't about to tolerate that kind of disrespect. He brutally took them on. Their numbers and knives didn't help. The last fare Dodger flew straight out the window. Tomas continued working on Adrian. That very night he planned to take her to bed. Charlie entered the restaurant. Another man involved in her parents' execution. The gang started beating some poor guy, and Adrian quickly left the place. Outside, Ray was already watching her. Tomas showed his true nature. He ordered Adrian not to leave his side, and told her to get into the car. She endured his touching and kisses. It was worth it, as long as she could one day watch him die. Tomas noticed the big man following them, stepped out of the car, and asked Ray what he wanted. He threatened to cut Ray's eye out if he kept staring. That night, Adrian drank heavily. It was the only way she could tolerate Tomas's advances. Back home, she lit a cigarette, broke down in tears, and then received a call from Ray. He told her he was taking the job. Ray's first target was Charlie. He had gone to see the club's manager, who was apparently stealing from the organization. While they talked, Ray planted explosives on the door and stopped a woman who was heading that way. By then, Charlie had already checked the accounting books. Charlie grabbed the door handle and was instantly blown apart. His severed head landed in an aquarium. Ned immediately realized that a top-tier professional had done the job. As the organization's head of security, the former CIA operative decided to track down the bomber. Joe promised that the police wouldn't interfere with Ned's investigation. Ray was living in hiding at the port. He rarely left his hideout. A courier delivered all his supplies, and a security system constantly scanned the building to detect intruders. Adrian wanted to meet the killer in person, to thank him for taking down the first murderer. The mob had the Miami police chief in its pocket. He promised to help Ned infiltrate the bomb disposal unit and introduce him as an FBI agent. Ned went straight to his new team. They weren't happy about having to take orders from some unknown guy. To make his point, Ned decided to have a little fun. He quickly assembled a small bomb inside a pen. In 20 seconds, an explosion was supposed to go off inside the station. No one volunteered to defuse it. One cop panicked and admitted he couldn't do it. All it took was clicking the pen. That was enough for Ned to prove he had the biggest balls in the room, and from then on, they knew they had to obey him. Tomas brought his lover to his luxurious island mansion. The mafioso had clearly fallen hard for her. She, however, was thinking about her second target. His name was Bill. Bill was afraid he might be the next victim of the bomber, so he constantly searched for mines and tripwires, and he was right to be cautious. The mustached gangster actually found a bomb on his car. After disarming it, Bill still didn't relax. He ordered the valet to move the car, just to be sure it was safe. But Ray had planned everything in advance. He had planted another bomb inside the parking terminal. Bill activated it himself, and 10 seconds later, he was blown across the parking lot along with his chair. Ned arrived at the scene with the police, and immediately realized this was the work of his former partner. He also began to suspect Adrian. He slapped her across the face, and the truth came out. It was Ned who had ordered the blonde woman to infiltrate the gang. Her task was to lure Ray out, which is why she kept asking the killer to meet her. Ned still held a grudge against his old partner and was determined to take revenge. Adrian had agreed to this deal because it was the only way she could get close to the people who murdered her parents. Tomas suspected the hired specialist was playing a double game, but unfortunately, his father trusted Ned without question. Meanwhile, Ray built another bomb. This one was hidden in a saucer with a coffee cup, while the detonator was concealed inside a tennis racket. Ray swapped the dishes and activated the device, but at the last moment, he noticed Adrian entering the room behind Tomas. Just before the explosion, she told the gangster who she really was. Once again, Ned failed to stop the killing. Joe promised Ned that he would pay for failing to protect Tomas. Ned could only redeem himself by finding the bomber before Ray finished burying Joe's son. That evening, Ray went to Adrian's home. Her funeral service was scheduled for the coming Friday. Ray showed up at the church, but a completely different body lay in the coffin. Shocked, he turned to leave, and suddenly came face to face with the woman who had hired him, alive and unharmed. Ray searched her and found a gun. Ned also showed up at the church and forced the priest to open the coffin. That was when the former CIA operative realized the blonde woman had played him. That same night, Ray and Adrian slept together in a hotel room. Adrian admitted she had needed to see Tomas die with her own eyes. The next morning, Adrian tried to escape, but the hotel receptionist had already sold them out to the gang, mentioning that the couple had spent the night there. Ned intercepted her in time. Adrian lied, claiming her staged death had been part of the plan, and that she was just about to call him. Ned didn't believe a single word and ordered her taken to the car. The blonde woman asked the female guard to let her use the bathroom. Inside, she snatched the woman's phone and smashed her in the face to keep her quiet. Adrian called Ray to warn him about the danger. Ray prepared to receive his guests. The gangsters entered the room and started searching it. It seemed empty. Still, Ned stayed hidden around the corner, just in case. And he was right. One of the men put the phone handset back in place, and at that exact moment, an explosion rocked the room. A chain of blasts followed, and the entire hotel room collapsed into the sea. Only Ned and one of his men survived. Ray escaped through the kitchen. Several gangsters were waiting for him there, but the professional dealt with them easily. One he shoved into boiling water, another he took down with a thrown knife. The last one at the exit was knocked out, and Ray finally got away. Ned brought Adrian to Joe, the accomplice in his son's murder. Adrian told the mob boss that Tomas had killed her parents. But all decisions in the organization were made by Joe himself. It was he who had ordered the execution of her family. Ned continued using Adrian as bait to lure Ray out. After some persuasion, the killer agreed to meet again, especially since Adrian made it clear it was a trap. Ned wired the blonde with a listening device. As soon as they heard Ray's voice, they would storm the restaurant. Adrian punched the bastard hard in the face before going in. Several snipers took positions around the restaurant. Adrian disappeared behind the door. Ned heard his enemy's voice, and then the restaurant exploded. Another building went up right after that. Ray had outplayed his former partner once again. Police rushed around in chaos, but Ray and Adrian escaped by boat. Later, Ray reviewed the recording of his conversation with Ned. Based on background sounds, the police narrowed down the general area where he might be hiding. The exact location of Ray's hideout was eventually given up by a young delivery courier. Adrian had no intention of stopping. As long as Joe Leon was still breathing, her revenge wasn't finished. Suddenly, police sirens filled the air. Ray's hideout was surrounded from land, sea, and air. The bomber didn't panic. He activated the building's self-destruction system. A satisfied Ned watched dozens of cops take positions before the assault. As a warning, Ray detonated one mine, along with a car. After the second blast, massive rotor blades nearly shredded the officers. The police were afraid to go inside, and for good reason. Ray kept triggering his mines, but that didn't stop Ned. He entered through a hole blown in the wall and aimed his gun at the pair. It turned out he had given Adrian a cigarette case filled with nitroglycerin, so they'd better not make any sudden moves. Adrian opened the case and saw that the bomber wasn't lying. Ned activated the bomb. Once Adrian exploded, he planned to deliver Ray alive to his mafia employer. Careless for once, Ned walked toward his enemy and stepped on a mine. The blast threw him aside, straight into another one. He burned alive in the fire. 30 seconds remained until total destruction. Ray carefully picked up the cigarette case and tossed it far away. Now, he and Adrian could run. They jumped into the basement at the last second. A series of explosions tore through the port. The entire complex was engulfed in flames. Newspapers later reported that 3 bodies had been found at the scene. Joe believed that along with Ned, Ray and Adrian were dead as well. Then he received a package, a medallion, with a photo of the executed family. Seconds later, Joe Leon was blown to pieces. Adrian had finally settled accounts with all her enemies.